I can still hear the way she laughed in that courtroom. My own sister. She leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms like she had already won. Pathetic, she whispered, just loud enough for me to hear. My stomach twisted, but I didn't say a word. The judge adjusted his glasses, shuffling through the papers on his desk. The whole room was silent, except for the sound of the air conditioner buzzing overhead. I sat there with clammy hands, praying for strength, while she smirked like a cat who'd cornered her prey. And then it happened. The judge cleared his throat and looked directly at her. "Miss Turner," he said slowly, "we need to address your recent financial activities before we proceed." Her smile faltered for the first time. She blinked, confused, trying to process what he'd just said. The room shifted, every eye now fixed on her. I remember gripping the edge of the table, so hard my knuckles went white. My heart was pounding. For months, she had been parading around like she owned everything that belonged to our parents. She told anyone who would listen that I was weak, that I didn't deserve a cent, that she would make sure I got nothing. And for a while, I believed her. I almost let her crush me with those words. But then the judge spoke her name again, firmer this time, and her face drained of color. For once, she didn't have a comeback. For once, she didn't look so powerful. I wish I could tell you I felt triumphant in that moment. The truth is, all I felt was the weight of years. Years of being pushed aside, overlooked, treated like a shadow in my own family. And now, here we were, both of us sitting in front of a judge, waiting for the truth to finally come out. But it didn't start there. It started weeks earlier, when I first realized just how far my sister was willing to go to keep everything for herself. It started weeks earlier, long before the judge spoke her name. It started on a Tuesday evening that smelled like lemon cleaner and rain. I was at the house, sorting through old photo albums because it felt better than staring at the empty space where our mother's chair used to be. My sister had keys, so she let herself in like she always did. She breezed into the dining room holding a folder and a smile that did not reach her eyes. "You are still here," she said, like it was a surprise. "Someone has to label these," I said, "or the grandkids will end up with a pile of strangers." She dropped the folder on the table as if it were a little bomb. "About strangers," she said. "I met with the bank. We need to move fast on the accounts. Taxes are a nightmare if we do not. I can handle it." I looked down at her folder and then up at her. "We can handle it," I said. She tilted her head and sighed. "Right. Well, I already took care of the immediate stuff. You were busy, and this is not your lane." "Show me," I said. She opened the folder and pushed a stack of forms across the table. Transfers, retitling, beneficiary updates, a power of attorney that was supposedly temporary. Everything looked official, full of neat lines and boxes. My name was on almost none of it. There were blank spots where it should have been. "You signed without me," I said. "Someone had to act," she said. "Do not be dramatic." She told me a story where she was a responsible adult saving the estate from chaos, where I was a sentimental liability. She said it with confidence, the way she had said most things since we were kids. That confidence made people nod without checking. It used to make me nod too. Not this time. I slid the papers back into the folder and closed it with one finger. "We will take these to the lawyer," I said. She laughed. "You need a lawyer to hold your hand to sign a form?" "I need a lawyer to tell me if my sister is trying to make me disappear," I said. The smile tightened. "You always think the worst of me," she said. That night I put the folder in my bag and sent a message to a family friend who knew a good estate attorney. In the morning, I took the files to a quiet office with gray walls and a pot of coffee that tasted like the end of a long day. The attorney's name was Ms. Chen. She wore a navy jacket and listened without moving much. When I finished, she pulled the papers toward her and read in silence. I could hear the second hand on her office clock. "Some of this is fine," she said at last. "Some of it is not. This power of attorney concerns me. When did she have your mother sign this?" "2 weeks before," I said, and I let the silence finish the sentence. Miss Chen nodded once. "We will request the notary record and any video. We will ask the bank for a history of transfers for 90 days. Do not sign anything else. Do not give her any documents. If she presses you, send her to me." I left the office feeling both heavier and stronger. The next day, The bank sent a polite email that said they were compiling records. The day after that, a man from the branch called and asked if he could speak to me away from my sister. His voice was polite and worried. She came in with a power of attorney she said was urgent, he said. We did some transfers to a holding account. At the time it looked proper. I need to tell you that before I knew you were not aware. How much? I asked. 40,000, he said. The number hit me like a bucket of cold water. It was not everything, but it was not small. He explained soft rules about family and grief, and how banks try to be humane without becoming careless. He apologized. I thanked him anyway. Then I sat in my car and stared at the steering wheel until my vision cleared. That night I drove to the house again. The air smelled like dust and cut grass. I went to the study to find a box for more photos. In the bottom drawer of the desk I found something I did not expect. A white envelope with my name on it in my mother's handwriting. My chest went hot and cold at the same time. I opened it. Inside was a single page. If you are reading this, I didn't get to say what I wanted, it began. It was short, careful, and clear. She wrote that she loved us, that she knew we were different in ways that made us knock against each other, and that she wanted us to respect the plans she and Dad had made. She wrote 2 lines that mattered more than the rest. Everything is to be shared equally. If anyone pressures you to sign or leave something out, call Ms. Chen. The number is in the top drawer. I opened the top drawer and there it was, on an old business card with a neat note. I had already found Ms. Chen, but seeing that card felt like my mother had reached out from the past and set a hand on mine. I took the letter and the card and tucked them into my bag. Then I sat in the study chair and watched night creep across the floor. My phone buzzed with a message from my sister. Have you signed the supplemental forms yet? She wrote. We need to make a deadline. I stared at the screen for a long second, then typed, send everything to Ms. Chen. Her reply came fast. Oh, come on. I did not come on. I put my phone down and locked the study door. Then I went home and waited for the next shoe to drop. It did not take long. The bank records arrived. Ms. Chen called me in and spread them on the table. She took a pen and circled amounts and dates. There, she said, tapping one transfer. And there. Notice the account numbers. This one ends in 44. This one ends in 44. That is not the estate account. That is a private account. The name on it is not the trust. It is your sister. I felt heat rise up the back of my neck. Can we prove it? I asked. We can, she said. We will. We can, she said. We will. We will also look at the notary record for the power of attorney. The notary file was worse. The recorded timestamp placed the signing at a day when Mom was asleep for most of the afternoon. The witness signature looked like it had been hurried. Ms. Chin sent a notice to preserve video from the bank branch security camera. The bank said they kept recordings for 30 days. We were just inside that window. I went home and lay on the couch without turning on any lights. My phone lit up on the coffee table again and again. My sister called, then texted, then called. I let it go to voicemail. When I finally read the messages, they varied between sweet and sharp, like someone flipping a switch. We have always done things together, she wrote. You are making this weird. Then, do not betray me over paperwork. Then, I will not let you ruin this. That last one sat heavy. I did not sleep much. In the morning my eyes felt like sand. Miss Chen sent our filings to the court the next day. We asked for a hearing. The clerk set a date for 2 weeks out. I worked during the days and sorted the house during the nights, half out of duty and half to keep myself from replaying every harsh word we had ever said to each other. It was a long replay. One night I found a voice recorder in the kitchen junk drawer. It was small and old. I charged it and pressed play. My mother's voice filled the room, thin and warm. She was reading a grocery list. Then later, she was talking to my dad about a birthday party. In the last recording she said, "Make sure the girls remember to be kind to each other when I am not in the room." The recorder clicked off. I pressed my hands over my face and let the ache move through me until it softened. The day before the hearing, Ms. Chen called with a tone I had not heard in her voice yet. Sharp, but pleased. We got the footage, she said. The bank camera shows your sister with a power of attorney. The timestamp is 11 a.m. The notary's log says 3 p.m. That gap matters because your mother's nurse chart says she was asleep and medicated from 10:30 to 2. There is no way your sister had a fresh signature at 11. I swallowed and nodded, even though she could not see me. So the document fails. It is at best invalid, she said. At worst, fraudulent. We will not say the second word unless the judge asks. I closed my eyes and let the relief land. Then I opened them and looked around the kitchen that still smelled like my mother's soap. I knew my sister would fight to the last inch. She always had. That was not new. What was new was that I was not alone in the fight. You probably think I should have left it to the attorneys right then. Do you not? Kept my head down, waited for the ruling, and let the system do the work. I wanted to. I almost did. Then my sister came to the house that night and shoved me back into the memory of every time I had stepped aside to keep the peace. She arrived without calling. She did not knock. She stood in the doorway with the same folder and the same smile. Last chance, she said. Last chance for what? I asked. For you to stop embarrassing us, she said. Sign the supplemental forms, and I will make sure you get a clean portion. No fuss. No court. No headlines. I am not embarrassed, I said. I am tired. She exhaled through her nose. You always did love to play the victim, she said. Mom is gone. Take your box of photos and let me handle the grown-up work. Mom asked us to share, I said. Equally. Her words. Her mouth tightened. You are weak, she said. You always have been. If I had not carried this family, we would be in a ditch somewhere. You carried what was easy to carry, I said. The rest you dropped on me and called it leadership. Her eyes flashed. The anger in them was old. It came from childhood, from moments where love felt scarce and we grabbed at it in the worst ways. I saw it and it almost softened me. Almost. Leave, I said. I will see you in court. She laughed on her way out. It was not a happy sound. That brings us back to the morning of the hearing. You already know the first moments. The air that hummed. The judge who adjusted his glasses. My sister leaning back in her chair like she was above gravity. Then the turn. The judge said her name with care, as if he were picking up something delicate and sharp at the same time. Miss Turner, he said, before we get to any question of distribution, we need to address certain transactions and a power of attorney that appears to have issues. Her smile faded. It did not disappear completely. She was still herself. She said, bright and firm, that everything had been done for the sake of order and speed, that her sister had been overwhelmed with grief, that she had stepped in to help as any responsible daughter would. Miss Chen stood and spoke in a voice that could have carried through a storm. She laid out the facts without adjectives. Bank records, timestamps, the nurse's chart, the footage. She did not use the heavy word. She did not need to. The judge watched the video on a small screen on his bench. He watched my sister slide the paper across the counter to the teller. He watched the teller scan it. He looked at the clock overlay that read 11:02 a.m. He looked at the notary log that said 3 p.m. He looked at the nurse chart that said sedated. Then he lifted his eyes to my sister. Miss Turner, he said, and his voice was a little softer, which somehow made it worse. Did your mother sign this document in your presence on the date indicated? My sister opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. She signed it, she said. She knew what she wanted. That is not what I asked, he said. There was a long silence. Then she said, she was tired. We did not have time to waste. I did what needed to be done. He nodded once. We will call that an answer. He turned to Ms. Chen. Do you have anything else on the transfers? We do, Ms. Chen said. The destination account ends in 44 and is not an estate account. The judge tapped the paper with his pen. He asked the bank manager to step up. A man in a gray suit did. He explained procedures and exceptions. He apologized for the confusion and promised that the bank would cooperate fully with any order. The judge took a breath and sat back. He stared at the ceiling for a second, maybe to gather patience. Then he leaned forward again. Here is what we will do, he said. The power of attorney is invalid. Any action taken under it is void. The funds will be returned immediately to the estate. Any further movement will require joint authorization or a court order. As for distribution, we are not there yet. We will set a new date. He paused then, and I swear the whole room leaned in. "One more thing," he said, looking at my sister. "I am not going to sanction you today. If I see another transfer, I will consider it." Her face lost its last bit of color. She nodded without looking up. The gavel clicked. People stood. The buzz of voices rose like a wave. Outside the courtroom, she caught up to me with a grip that hurt. "You did this," she said through her teeth. "You turned him against me." "He listened to the facts," I said. She let go of my arm and took a step back. "You think you are righteous," she said. "You are just better at playing helpless than I am." There was nothing to say to that. I walked away. Miss Chen met me at the end of the hall. "Go home," she said. "Eat. Sleep. We will handle the returns." I tried to do what she said. I made toast and stared at it until it went cold. I lay on the couch and dozed for 20 minutes at a time. Every time I woke, my heart hammered like I had been running. I texted the housekeeper and asked her to check the doors. She sent back a picture of the front lock and a thumbs up. I thanked her and closed my eyes again. The next week was a blur of calls and receipts. The bank returned the funds. The clerk scheduled a status conference. Miss Chin asked me for a list of items that had meaning so we could protect them, not just the expensive things, but the personal ones. I walked the house with a notebook and wrote down small descriptions. Mom's locket. The quilt with the blue squares that she finished the summer we all had the flu. The recipe box with her handwriting on the tabs. Halfway through the list, I felt my sister behind me. I had not heard her arrive. The hair on my arms lifted, the way it does when you walk into a room that holds a current you cannot see. "You made your list," she said. "Of course you did. You should make one too," I said. "We can trade copies and give them to Ms. Chen." "Why would I do that?" she asked. "So you do not wake up one day and realize that the only things left are the ones that make you angry," I said. She looked past me at the locket on the dresser. Her throat moved. Then her face closed again. She picked up a postcard from the tray and flicked it back down. "You always make everything a sermon," she said. "Save it for people who like the sound of your voice." I was done preaching. I stepped aside and let her pass. She took nothing that day. That felt like a win. It was not a big one, but it was quieter in my chest after she left. The second court date came with cold rain and a late start. When we finally got called, the judge moved fast. He asked if the funds had been returned. The bank manager said yes. He asked if there were any new disputes about the inventory. Miss Chin presented our lists and an agreement that split the personal items like we were children dividing a deck of cards. The judge nodded and signed. Then he looked at us both and asked if we had any final statement before he set the order about the remaining accounts and the sale of the summer cottage. My sister stood and spoke first. She said words that sounded reasonable on paper. She said she wanted fairness. She said she wanted efficiency. She said she had always acted for the good of the family. When it was my turn, I stood and kept it simple. "Our parents wanted equal," I said. "That is all I want." The judge wrote something on his pad and then read the order. Equal distribution. Joint signature required for sales. An executor from a neutral firm to handle the property sale, so we would not have to stand in the same room and sign anything together. He looked relieved to be done. I was relieved too. In the hallway, my sister did not look at me. She walked out into the rain without an umbrella, chin high, coat open. I watched her go and felt a mix of things I did not know how to name. When I finally went outside, the rain felt clean. You might be wondering why I did not try to push for sanctions or file police reports or turn every screw the law would let me turn. I asked myself the same question in a dozen different ways. Here is the answer I came to, even if it will not satisfy everyone. I wanted peace more than I wanted punishment. I wanted to be able to stand in the kitchen months later and make tea without tasting the metal of old fights. I wanted a life again. We sold the cottage and split the proceeds. We kept the house for another year while I decided what to do. She took the car that had been hers for the last 2 years anyway. I took the boxes of letters that she did not want. The accounts were divided down the middle. The numbers looked like math. The feeling did not. In the months that followed, I kept expecting another shoe to drop. There were days when I jumped at the mail slot or the buzz of my phone. Then the days stretched out, and nothing dramatic happened. I started sleeping through the night again. I planted rosemary by the back steps. I learned how to fix the loose handle on the hallway door. Small things, but they made the house feel like it belonged to the living. One afternoon in late spring, a letter arrived in handwriting I knew. My sister's. I held it for a long time before opening it. Inside was a single page. I am not apologizing, she wrote, which was the most her of openings. I am just telling you that I am done. I will not fight you anymore. I will not call. Sell the house or keep it. I do not care. Do not call me unless it is an emergency about Dad's old aunt. That is all. I read it twice and then put it in a drawer with the rest of the papers that proved the last year had been real. I did not feel victory. I felt an exhale. Summer came. The house got hot in the afternoons and I learned the trick with the windows that kept the heat from climbing into the bedrooms. I found a small blue notebook tucked in the back of a closet. Mom had written recipes and little notes to herself. On one page in the corner, she had written, "Remember the good parts," and underlined it twice. I took a picture and set it as my phone background. In early fall, I met Miss Chen for coffee to hand her the last receipts. She asked me how I was. I told her the truth. Better. Tired. Grateful. She nodded like those words made sense together. Before we left, she put a small envelope on the table. "This came in our mail," she said. "From the bank. It is a copy of something your mother filed years ago. I think it is yours." I opened the envelope and pulled out a single page. It was a beneficiary designation that listed us both in simple, equal lines. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because there was something steadying about holding a piece of paper that said exactly what we had fought so hard to honor. On the walk home, the sun hit the sidewalk at a kind angle. I thought about the look on my sister's face when the judge said her name. I thought about my own hands gripping the table. I thought about how easy it would be to become the kind of person who keeps score forever. I do not want to be that person. That night I made tea and sat at the kitchen table with the window open. The city hummed in the distance. I could hear someone laughing on the sidewalk. I took out Mom's letter and read it again. Share equally. Call Miss Chen if someone pressures you. Be kind to each other when I am not in the room. We did not hit that last one. Maybe someday. Maybe not. I folded the letter and put it back in its envelope. Then I turned off the light and let the house settle around me like a blanket. A week later, the judge's final order arrived. It was short and clean. The estate was closed. The file was done. I put the order on the shelf with the other important documents and stared at the spine of the folder for a long minute. Then I walked to the study and picked up the first album I had labeled months ago. I ran my fingers over the plastic and opened to a page where Mom was holding a pie that had collapsed in the middle, pretending to cry while Dad laughed so hard he had to sit down. I laughed too, out loud, in an empty room that did not feel empty anymore. That is how it ended, or at least how the part with the judge ended. The rest is quieter. I take care of what is left. I make dinner. I play old records on a player that clicks when you start it. I plant herbs that refuse to die. I write my sister's number on a card and put it in the kitchen drawer under a rubber band. I hope we never need it. I hope we do, for something good. I let both hopes sit side by side without fighting each other. When I think back to the courtroom, I do not remember the exact words as much as I remember the moment the air shifted. The judge said her name, and the power tilted away from the story she had been telling and toward the truth we could prove. It did not fix everything between us. It did not redo the years where we learned the wrong lessons about love and fairness. It did something smaller and more important. It gave me a floor to stand on. I will take that. If you are going through something like this, I am not going to tell you to be noble or brave every day. Some days you will be tired. Some days you will want to sign whatever is in front of you, just to make the noise stop. On those days, hold the line you drew the night before. Keep the people who stay calm when you are shaking. Write down the things that matter and check them when your head is noisy. You do not have to be perfect. You just have to be steady. And if you are wondering whether I still replay the moment when the judge said her name, I do, but not for the reason you think. I replay it because it reminds me that facts have weight. That weight is slow but certain. It does not care about volume. It does not care about performance. It sits quietly in the middle of the room until someone notices it. Then it does not move. I sometimes catch myself talking to Mom while I cook. I tell her what the judge said. I tell her how I labeled the albums. I tell her that I did what she asked, even when it was ugly. I tell her about the rosemary that finally took. I tell her I am trying to remember the good parts. Some nights I think I hear her laugh in the sound of the kettle when it starts to sing. I know that is not how sound works. I let myself hear it anyway. The last time I saw my sister, it was not in a courtroom. It was at a grocery store near the old house. We reached for the same bag of coffee and laughed from habit. It felt strange and familiar at the same time. She said she was fine. I said I was fine. We stood in that aisle and ran out of small talk. Then she said, "You got what you wanted." No, I said. I got what they wanted. She looked at me for a long second. Her face did a thing I had not seen since we were kids, some mix of confusion and relief. Then she nodded. We said goodbye. I walked to the checkout and did not look back. On the way home, I passed the courthouse. The steps were full of people with folders and faces like the ones we wore last year. I wanted to tell them that the building is not magic, but it is not useless either. It is just a room where truth can get counted in public if you bring enough of it stacked neatly and in order. It is also a room where you learn how to live with the part of the story that does not get fixed by a gavel. I put the coffee away and opened the window. The afternoon light made a pattern on the floorboards. I stood in it and felt the small, ordinary happiness of a home that is quiet for the right reasons. For a minute I wished my sister could feel it too. Then I turned to the stove and made dinner. That is the whole story. Not every piece of it, but the parts that matter. A judge said her name. The numbers went back where they belonged. The rest is up to time and small choices. If you were here, I would pour you tea and tell you the best parts again. I would show you the page in the album where Dad tries to blow out candles and sets his sleeve on fire. I would tell you the joke he told every year that never got funny and never stopped working. We would sit at the table and laugh like we were not tired. You stayed with me to the end. That means more than you think. It means you know what it feels like when the people who should protect you forget how, and you keep standing anyway. It means you understand that some wins are quiet. It means you are the kind of person who lets a story take its time. And if you are thinking I should have burned every bridge and walked away with a victory speech, I get it. Part of me wanted that too. I did not pick that ending. I picked this one, the one with fewer speeches and more sleep. I like this one. It lets me hear the kettle sing. In the end, the judge's words didn't just expose my sister. They reminded me of something deeper. Truth has weight. It may take its time, but it always shows up. My sister walked out of that courtroom with her head down, and I walked out knowing I'd finally honored what my parents wanted: fairness. But I'll admit, one question still lingers. Did I make the right choice by not pushing harder, by letting the court's ruling stand instead of chasing punishment? Or did I let her off too easily? Thank you for staying with me through this story. It means a lot to know you're here listening. If you've ever been through family betrayal, inheritance fights, or moments where you had to decide between peace and payback, you're not alone. This is exactly what we share here on Threadpool's Tales. So if this story pulled you in, please subscribe and join this community of people who know how heavy these stories can be and how powerful it is to finally tell them. Hit that like button if you want to hear more, and drop your thoughts below. Would you have exposed the truth like I did, or stayed silent to avoid the fight? I want to hear what you think, because every story sparks a conversation. And remember, here on Threadpool's Tales, every thread has a pulse, and every story deserves to be told.